President Trump is lashing out again against leaders in Iran as the two sides give mixed messages about the state of negotiations. On Truth Social yesterday, the president called out Iranian officials, calling them, quote, unbelievably duplicitous. After Tehran contradicted his claim, negotiations were resuming. Later yesterday in the Oval Office, the president warned of what he says is the last chance for Iran to sign a deal.
Many countries called, the leaders of many are friendly with a lot of them, almost all of them, one way or the other, and they all wanted to give this a last chance. This is a last chance. This is not something that, if it doesn't happen, this is a last chance for them to sign a good document.
Where are the Iran talks, and what are your requirements
You'll find
right
out
now?
today or tomorrow. I mean, they're going to go quickly, one way or the other. It's not very complex. We're talking about the Strait, the opening of the Strait, having it open literally by tomorrow, completely open. And that's phase one. And phase two is we then will talk about the nuclear capacity, the nuclear, as we've been mentioned. Basically, it's, I think, most the denuclearization of Iran has to happen. And that'll be the second phase.
Would Iran be willing to return to fully free navigation?
It has to be. I'm not going to let them charge. If anybody's going to charge, we'll charge. We're the one that has total control. We have total control. We have a thing called a blockade with his Navy. And that Navy is, they call it a wall of steel, the United States wall of steel. And no, there's not going to be charging. We're not talking about charging at all. There won't be charging.
So those comments were yesterday. You heard the president say tomorrow the Strait will be open. That would put it open today. But the New York Times is reporting Iran and Oman are closing in on an agreement to reopen shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz that could cement Iran's control of the waterway that was open, of course, before the war began. Iranian and American officials say under the agreement, vessels heading into the Persian Gulf will transit a channel controlled by Iran, while ships leaving the Gulf will travel on a channel near Oman. Iranian officials add, while there will be no tolls charged, the agreement includes a service fee to cover the environmental impact of the shipping, security for the cargo ships and containers, and the tankers and staffing. Revenues, Iranian officials say, would be divided equally between Iran and Oman. Jeff, before we get to the senator on all this, just put together all the comments we just heard. How many times have we heard this is Iran's last chance? How many times have we heard the deal will be struck in a day or two? It's not really that complex. The Strait will be open. We're dominating the Strait. That's been 5 months of this, essentially.
Constantly. I mean, it's his refrain when he's asked about it. And it's been a study of contradictions from the very beginning of this war, both in what he wanted to achieve with it and in how he was going to get out of it. And that manifested itself even more over the last couple weeks, when we thought at first that it was going to end because they'd gotten this MOU and they had a ceasefire. But Iran does not play by the same rules and President Trump kind of makes up his own rules as he goes along too. And you've seen that both in his rhetoric and in his actions with regard to this war.
I mean, Senator, as you listened to the president yesterday, I think a lot of people going about their lives, especially during the summer, tuning in and tuning out a little bit, just hear it and they go, are we doing this still? Is this still the state of play? So just from the inside, from everything you know about our intelligence, about our military, about this war, what is the state of play right now?
Look, the state of play, tragically, is that President Trump has failed to achieve any of the major goals he set out 5 months ago for this expensive, costly war of choice. And what Delawareans tell me is that gas and groceries, health care and housing all have gone up. And 5 months in, we've paid too big a cost for this war. I tell you, back in February, the Strait of Hormuz was open and there was no one charging any fees and there was no threat of control by Iran. And what President Trump said we would accomplish, a regime change. Remember, help is on the way. Ayatollah 2.0, angrier, more in control with a more extreme IRGC, that we were going to wipe out their support for proxies. Well, the Houthis are currently holding hostage the other strait, the entrance to the Red Sea, that we were going to end their ability to strike our allies in the region. They're still launching ballistic missiles and drones. And that the American people would end up safer because there'd be a permanent end to any nuclear enrichment or any potential path to a bomb. Those negotiations have gone nowhere. So frankly, I'm concerned that there's no good plan for how to get out of this. Those of us who've been parents know that when you're trying to set some condition, you can't go by the count of one, you got to go to your room, and then go 5, 4, 3, 2.5, 2 1/4, 1 3/4. And that's what he's doing. No one believes him anymore. He makes these statements, and, you know, with one hand, he's saying that the oil and gas companies are making too much money, when those are the exact people he said during his campaign, give me $1 billion and I'll give you the world. And he's saying we have total control over the Strait of Hormuz when there's nothing moving through the Strait of Hormuz. It is weakening us as a nation. He's abandoned our core allies, and he's put us on the back foot globally on all the other issues facing our country.
Senator, first, thanks for the parenting tips. I've taken some notes how to talk to my kids later tonight. A couple of things. First of all, the tolls, I mean, Gulf states are going to be furious. They made it very clear. The Strait of Hormuz was open and free before the end of February. Now they're going to be paying some sort of fee, toll, whatever you want to call it. I have a hard time imagining some of those Iran neighbor states are going to like the idea of paying Iran, that they're going to use that money to help them rebuild what has been destroyed. But also, I can't help but go back to President Trump's Truth Social post, another wild 180, where he calls Iran unbelievably duplicitous. What? Like, that's what they do. Like, that's what Iran has been all along. And it just, to me, it seems another moment. And this is my real question for you is, this war will end at some point, we think. But doesn't the United States project so much weaker to the rest of the world than we did before, especially if we end up cutting and running from the region and leaving Iran in control of one of the most vital waterways on the globe?
Yes. And look, we're in a very dangerous moment in the world. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues, helped by Iran and China and North Korea. And China continues to further encircle Taiwan, to project naval power further and further into the Western Pacific. All of these four countries that are determined adversaries of the United States are sharing material, troops, technology. They are coming closer together in their determination to undo our place in the world. And President Trump has distanced us from our most important and trusted allies. Recent polls show that folks in Canada and Mexico have a higher view of China than the United States. So whether it's our relationship with our NATO allies in Europe, it's our relationship in North America with Canada and Mexico, or in the Western Pacific with long, close, and trusted treaty allies like Japan, Korea, Australia, the Philippines, his tariff regime, his throwing taxes at every single country in a willy-nilly way just to try and get out from under the Supreme Court's control, and the way his own personal corruption has set us back in terms of our reputation globally, has weakened us. You started this section with him saying, oh, the people who are making too much are ExxonMobil and Chevron. The person who's making too much is President Trump. And his having made billions in a crypto deal and running this government as a corrupt family enterprise weakens our moral authority globally in a profound and lasting way.
You know, Senator, this war is supposed to last 4 to 6 weeks at the beginning. Obviously, we're in month 6 and in a state of global stalemate. Yep. But at some point it's going to end. How is it going to end? You've watched President Trump operate now in his first and second term. What do you think is going to bring this to a close? What will happen?
I think it will end badly. I think it will end with him accepting a deal that is worse than the deal that Barack Obama had, that had inspectors on the ground, that had real clarity about what was and wasn't going on the ground. I think he will simply concede and accept that having Iran stop firing drones and missiles at our bases and our allies, and having them have control of the Strait of Hormuz, the ability to charge fees, is acceptable when facing midterm elections where his numbers are going through the floor. And frankly, that's a bad deal. And that puts us on a weak foot in the region and globally. But we are in a very tenuous position militarily in terms of our ability to continue intercepting Iranian drones and missiles. They have more of them than we had been told they had, even as a few weeks ago. And sadly, our regional allies feel like they can't absorb any more hits to their facilities, their oil and gas facilities, and their civilian facilities from Iran. So I think this ends badly for us.